So we are going to study about the ovarian cancer. Okay, ovarian cancer, that is the sixth most frequently diagnosed cancer in women. These are the latest statistics, with around 7,300 new cases diagnosed in the UK during the year 2013. Okay, that is a bit older figure, but as you know, the Embrace report that is published every 3 years. So these are the latest figures that are shared by the RCOG. Okay, so fallopian tube and primary peritoneal cancers, they are also considered with ovarian cancer group and managed with the same form of treatments. So this topic will cover the ovarian cancer, primary peritoneal cancers, and the fallopian tube cancers. All are managed in the same way. So it is said that many high-grade serous cancers, and those are originally arise from fallopian tubes rather than ovary itself. So now coming for the etiology, most of the ovarian cancers, they are sporadic, although there is a genetic predisposition in 10 to 15% of the cases. You get my point? Hello guys.
The picture is not enlarged. Screen
is
has
not
to be,
Yes,
yeah,
ma'am. Clear.
clear, but it's small. Please enlarge it.
okay, let
No,
me
ma'am.
Dr. Asiya, you can use the mobile in a horizontal position. Then I
Okay.
think it will be maximized automatically in slideshow. If you place them, yes, like this.
Yeah. It's,
Is it better?
It's better.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am. Thanks.
Okay. Should I proceed further?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Because we are already late because of some problem with my laptop. So now coming to the introduction. Treatment most commonly, that is the summary. Treatment combines surgery and chemotherapy. Some early stage disease will not require adjuvant chemotherapy. We will discuss later in detail about these modalities. In advanced diseases, we consider stage 3 and 4 relapse is common and reflected in 5-year survival pattern of 40%. Okay. Now, coming to the patients at risk, these risk factors we will discuss in very much detail in the TOG article at the end of this topic. But now shortly coming to this, lifetime risk of ovarian cancer is 1 in 50 women in the UK. Up to 15% of the cases may be inherited by the gene defects. Principally, these are 3 types of genes like BRCA1, BRCA2, and hereditary non-polyposis colorectal carcinoma group. We call it Lynch syndrome as well. So each carrying lifetime risk of about 1 in 2, 1 in 5, and 1 in 10 respectively. Like BRCA1 carriers, they have lifetime risk of 1 in 2, BRCA2 1 in 5, and HNPCC group, they 1 in 10. In women with genetic predisposition, prophylactic surgery presently affords the best preventive strategy. Now coming to the risk factors. Most important risk factor is the family history, like we discussed it in the genetic predisposition. Now coming to the other risk factors, increasing age. It is ovarian cancer is rare in women under the age of 30, but the incidence increases rapidly after the menopause, reaching a peak incidence in women aged 60 and over. Other risk factor, nulliparity, infertility, use of perineal talc, obesity, HRT. Now, looking at the infertility and nulliparity, we should be clear that ovulation induction and use of different types of ovulation induction drugs, IVF, these do not cause ovarian cancer. The inherent risk is because of infertility. So previously it was thought that multiple ovulation inductions, they can lead to ovarian cancers, But now it is clear that it is not because of the use of these drugs, it is because of the infertility. Obesity and HRT, these are the risk factors. Now, there are some protective factors that reduce the risk of ovarian cancers. These include the use of combined oral contraceptive pills, breastfeeding, sterilization, and hysterectomy. Okay. Now, familial risk screening. As you people might know that universal screening for ovarian cancer is not in practice right now. There is no role for population screening. We screen the people means by taking the history. We screen the people who have genetic predisposition and we offer them risk reducing surgery. Okay, women at high risk of developing ovarian cancer are defined using genetic testing and from the family history of cancer in first degree relatives. Purpose is to identify women at high risk, to facilitate referral to genetic centers, allow recruitment into research screening programs, because there is no accepted screening program till now for ovarian cancer, and allow discussion of prophylactic measures. Currently, there is no evidence to support general population or high-risk group screening. Now, coming to the FIGO staging for ovarian cancer, I have skipped the portion of presentation of ovarian cancer because I think in the last class it was covered about the management of ovarian cyst, its presentation. But to shortly summarize, presentation of ovarian cancer is very non-specific. It presents with bloating, abdominal fullness, loss of appetite, diarrhea, feeling of mass in the abdomen. So any patient who have these non-specific symptoms for more than 12 months, sorry, more than 12 weeks, they need screening for ovarian cancer. Okay. Now coming to the FIGO staging of ovarian cancer. There are 4 stages. First is stage 1. In stage 1 disease, the tumor is confined to the ovaries. Further, that stage divided 1A, 1B, and 1C. 1A, tumor limited to one ovary, capsule intact, no tumor on the surface, negative washings. Okay, that is 1A. 1B, tumor involves both ovaries, otherwise similar to 1A. Means there is no tumor on the surface, negative washings, capsule is intact. If it is in one ovary, that is 1A. If it involves both ovaries, that is 1B. Now, if the tumor is limited to one ovary or both ovaries, but it has surgical spill, capsule is ruptured before surgery, or there is tumor on the ovarian surface, or malignant cells in the ascites or peritoneal washings, then it upgrades the tumor classification to 1C. Am I clear so far, guys?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So 1C, tumor limited to one or both ovaries. 1C1, that is surgical spill. This classification that is updated in 2014, and it is different from the previous class because it includes the surgical spill as well. 1C2, capsule rupture before surgery or tumor on the ovarian surface. 1,3, malignant cells in the ascites or peritoneal washings, and that is the pictorial representation of this classification. Now, coming to stage 2. In stage 2, tumor involves one or both ovaries with pelvic extension that is below the pelvic brim or primary peritoneal cancer. Means if you see a tumor that is arising primarily from the peritoneum, we will classify it as stage 2 disease. Or if involves one or both ovaries and has pelvic extension. Now it has further 2 subclassifications. 2A, extension and or implant on the uterus and the fallopian tubes. Even if it is on the uterus and or fallopian tubes, that is 2A. 2B, that is extension to other pelvic intraperitoneal tissues. Now you should be very clear about this intraperitoneal tissues. If it is extraperitoneal, then even inside the pelvis, then it upgrades the classification to a greater stage. Now this is the pictorial representation. Stage 2A, confined to spread to fallopian tube and the uterus, and 2B, spread to the bowel, bladder, or other intraperitoneal pelvic structures. Now coming to the stage 3, tumor involves one or both ovaries with cytologically or histologically. Okay, now we were on stage 3. Are you guys with me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Tumor in stage 3, tumor involves one or both ovaries with cytological or histologically confirmed spread to the peritoneum outside the pelvis and or mets to the retroperitoneal lymph nodes. 3A, that is positive retroperitoneal lymph nodes and or microscopic mets beyond the pelvis. Now 3A is further separated 3A1, which has further two classes. 3A1 that involves positive retroperitoneal lymph nodes only. In 3A1, first classification mets are less than 10 millimeter size, and in the second classification, the mets are greater than 10 millimeter. Now 3A2, microscopic extrapelvic above the brim peritoneal involvement plus minus retroperitoneal lymph nodes. Means lymph nodes are also positive and the disease has extended beyond the pelvis. So it will upgrade to 3A2. Now coming to the stage 3B, now coming to the 3A. In 3A, there are positive retroperitoneal lymph nodes and or microscopic mets beyond the pelvis. Okay. 3A1, positive retroperitoneal lymph nodes only. Now 3A1 with positive lymph nodes, that is further divided into 1 and 2. In the 3A1 subclassification 1, mets are less than 10 millimeter size. And now coming to 3A2, I was talking about 3A1, now I am talking about 3A2, microscopic extrapelvic peritoneal involvement, positive retroperitoneal lymph nodes. Means if the disease is microscopic, then that is 3A2 and it is extrapelvic. Now coming to 3B, macroscopic extrapelvic peritoneal mets less than 2 centimeter plus minus positive retroperitoneal lymph nodes. Now coming to stage 3C, macroscopic extrapelvic peritoneal mets greater than 2 centimeter plus minus positive retroperitoneal lymph nodes, includes extension to capsule of the liver, spleen without parenchymal involvement of either organ. If it is the parenchymal involvement, then it upgrades the stage to stage 4. If it is only the capsule of the liver and the spleen, that is stage 3C. Now it will be further clear after, by this picture. Now this is the stage 3A1, cancer in the lymph nodes. These are retroperitoneal lymph nodes. Now 3A2, cancer cells are in the lining of the abdomen, only seen under a microscope. Stage 3B, cancer that are 2 centimeter or smaller are in the lining of your lower abdomen like peritoneum, extrapelvic. That is stage 3C. Cancer larger than 2 centimeter are in the extrapelvic peritoneum. Is that clear right now? Now coming to the stage 4, distant mets excluding peritoneal mets. Okay. 4A, pleural effusion with positive cytology. 4B, hepatic or splenic parenchymal mets to extra-abdominal organs, including inguinal lymph nodes and lymph nodes outside of the abdominal cavity. This is the pictorial representation of stage 4 mets to different distant organs. Okay. Now coming to the diagnosis of ovarian cancer, as we can see, the disease has non-specific symptoms, so this presents at a later stage. Almost 70 to 75% of the women with ovarian cancer present with advanced disease, FIGO stage 3 or 4. As I already mentioned, these are non-specific symptoms. Now, reference is from Strategy. So they say that if there are new symptoms for a period of 3 weeks, so the patient first presents to primary care. So it is mandatory for them to screen or do workup for ovarian cancer. Other symptoms, decreased appetite, weight loss, altered bowel habits, urinary frequency may also occur. So once they present into the primary care, they should be worked up with CA125 and ultrasound and referred urgently to the gynecologist. That is 2-week wait pathway. If some patients have, that is very important to remember. If some patient has these symptoms and presents in the primary care, it is mandatory to refer her to the gynecologist within 2 weeks. Now, a definitive pathological diagnosis is obtained from tissue samples, but that are at primary laparoscopy, laparoscopy, or image-guided biopsies, which we routinely don't do. Tissue diagnosis is particularly important to distinguish low from high-grade serous cancers, which have different treatment strategies and outcomes. Besides clinical examination, imaging with CT scanning and or ultrasound and serum CA125 measurements are key investigations facilitating the diagnosis and appropriate management plan. In the women under age of 40 years, germ cell tumors are more common. The additional blood tests required are beta-HCG, alpha-fetoprotein, and LDH. Now coming to the management of the ovarian cancer, optimal cytoreduction and survival. As there is a high correlation between optimal cytoreduction and survival, it is used to identify women that may require tertiary referral. Optimal cytoreduction in advanced stage disease is most likely to be achieved in tertiary centers. That is why it is emphasized that these patients should be managed in the tertiary care centers, where specialists are specifically trained in gynecological cancer surgery. The assessment in the secondary care is therefore important to help decide the best place for the patient to have surgery.
Repeat,
Now,
please.
okay. The management for ovarian cancer, that is optimal cytoreduction. Cytoreduction is we do the surgery, we take as much of the tumor as much possible for us, and the aim is to leave no residual tumor behind. That is called cytoreduction because it is directly linked to the survival. So it is emphasized that these patients in which we suspect the ovarian cancer, these should be referred and managed in the tertiary care center where the gynecological oncology facilities are available, so those people can perform the surgery. So it is said that assessment in the secondary care is therefore important because it will help us decide the best place for the patient to have surgery. Okay, is that clear now?
Yes.
Okay, and the investigation modality when we suspect ovarian cancer on ultrasound, it is mandatory at the secondary care center to have a CT scan of the abdomen, pelvis, and the thorax if needed. So we routinely don't use the MRI for the assessment of the ovarian cancer. We use the CT scan, and after that we refer the patient. It will be further clarified in the coming slides. Now, RMI, risk of malignancy index. To identify those who should be referred to the cancer center, a risk of malignancy index scoring is used. RMI is calculated using menopausal status, presence, absence of suspicious ultrasound features, and the serum CA125 result. when the RMI crosses a designated threshold, normally score of 250 or more, the risk of malignancy is deemed high and referral to the cancer center is required. In premenopausal women, CA125 can be elevated even if taken when menstruating, with active endometriosis, pregnancy, infection, and so on, making RMI score less reliable in this age group. Irrespective of the RMI score, cases should be referred to a cancer center where a metastatic disease is noted during the assessment. Now, this is the flow chart from the Strategy website, which shows the tests done in the secondary care pathway. Women referred to the secondary care with suspected ovarian cancer. If not already done in primary care, measure CA125, perform ultrasound of abdomen and pelvis, and additional investigations if woman is under 40 years of age. Calculate RMI score, RMI greater than 250, refer to specialist MDT. Okay, so as I already mentioned, if ultrasound, serum CA125 and clinical status suggest ovarian cancer, perform a CT scan of the pelvis and the abdomen to establish the extent of disease. Do not use MRI routinely. Offer information on the ovarian cancer, including psychosexual and psychosocial issues. Now coming to the general surgical principles. The majority of women with suspected ovarian cancer will have primary surgery, which permits surgical staging, tumor excision, and relief of symptoms. Optimum surgical excision, where no visible disease is left behind, carries better survival outcome compared to those with residual disease. Where suboptimal staging has been performed and there is concern that metastatic disease may be present, the cases should be discussed with a multidisciplinary team to consider restaging by gynecological oncologist. So in the pre-operative counseling of the patient, it is mandatory that the patient should be counseled that if at the time of surgery there is suboptimal staging, there is concern about the metastatic disease, then it will be prudent to have a restaging by the gynecological oncologist. Is that clear so far? Now coming to the surgical procedure, a midline laparotomy and surgical management of ovarian cancer provides the opportunity to obtain accurate staging information. We do the hysterectomy, removal of both tubes and ovaries, infracolic omentectomy, and samples are taken for peritoneal cytology. Now, surgical scenarios when different patient present with different stage of the disease, so management is different for every stage. Early disease refers to the presence of malignancy in the ovaries alone. Such cases may have been anticipated on the basis of tumor markers and preoperative imaging, while other may be encountered at the time of laparotomy where the finding was not anticipated. Means we accidentally find out that it might be an ovarian cancer. Equally, some cases of early stage disease may not be realized until final histology report. To minimize the chances of encountering unanticipated malignancy, it is prudent to employ the risk of malignancy index preoperatively in the assessment of women with ovarian mass. Now, it should also be noted that the younger women with ovarian mass should have serum analysis for other tumor markers that may alert the surgeon to the possibility of non-epithelial ovarian cancers. Even in apparently early stage disease, it is important to carry out accurate staging. However, on occasion, attempts at fertility conserving surgery may be indicated. It is very important to understand that for staging of the ovarian cancer, we need to essentially do a midline laparotomy and do accurate staging because it has the impact on the survival. But if the patient is young and she wants to spare her fertility, then conservative surgery may also be indicated. Now, what are the fertility conserving options? Fertility conserving surgery is important management option for some patients, usually for younger age. In cases where this is planned, peritoneal washings, unilateral salpingo-oophorectomy, and omental biopsy should be undertaken. Unilateral is possible only if one ovary is involved. In case where both ovaries are involved, then unfortunately, we necessarily need to involve the both ovaries. Depending on the histology, more formal staging may be deemed necessary. Those such cases should be referred to the gynecological oncology team for discussion. Of particular note is that germ cell tumors are common in the younger age group. Tumors that are very chemosensitive. In such cases, fertility sparing surgery is recommended with some form of adjuvant chemotherapy. While chemotherapy can affect the fertility, in most cases, this seems to be transitory. Means this it is not permanent. After stopping the chemotherapy, fertility returns, although it is declined. So it is said chemotherapy can affect fertility, but in most cases it is transitory, with most patients achieving desired pregnancies. Nevertheless, the fact remains that surgery and chemotherapy will adversely impact to some extent on the fertility. Now coming to the management of advanced disease, it generally means stage 3 and 4 disease, though some may add in stage 2 disease as well. All of the patient will require surgery and some form of adjuvant therapy. The aim of surgery is to leave no residual tissue. Where this is considered unachievable based on clinical and imaging evaluations, then neoadjuvant chemotherapy is indicated, with surgery deferred until after 3 cycles of chemotherapy. Means if we suspect from the workup that it will not be possible for the surgeon to have all the disease out, so we give chemotherapy 3 cycles, then we plan the surgery, and after the surgery we will again go for chemotherapy. Now there is a bit newer concept, extensive or ultra radical surgery. It is increasingly performed to achieve no residual disease. Do you guys have any idea about ultra radical surgery? Anyone? Hello, guys? No idea. Okay. Okay.
Including peritoneal stripping.
Yeah. Great. So I will move forward to the next slide. Please tell to everyone peritoneal stripping and other things. Can you add something else?
If this is extraperitoneal, then we can do the dissection of the pleural, some part of the pleural thing. It is written in Dewhurst as far as I have remember.
Oh, okay, great. That is very good contribution. Okay, now coming to the ultra radical surgery as defined by NICE. It is a development, means that is a research term which is being underwent right now, and extension of the standard radical surgery, and although not clearly defined, means it is not defined that in ultra radical surgery we will go up to this landmark. No, it tends to include procedures such as diaphragmatic stripping, extensive peritoneal stripping, multiple bowel resections, liver resection, partial gastrectomy, cholecystectomy, and splenectomy. NICE guidelines currently recommend that ultra radical surgery has been insufficient evidence to safety and efficacy, and therefore only be carried out with specific arrangements for clinical governance, and that all cases should be published. Means it is necessary to report the cases in which ultra radical surgery is undertaken. Women with advanced disease should be managed by a gynecological oncologist working with a recognized gynecological cancer center as recommended by NICE and other national guidelines. Now, management of ovarian cancer and the role of chemotherapy. Ovarian cancer is a chemosensitive solid tumor. The most common treatment used is a combination of carboplatin with paclitaxel, usually for 6 cycles, with each cycle given at 3 weekly interval. Alternative strategies continue to evolve with individualization of the therapy now gaining increasing momentum. Means it is said that there are no hard and fast rules, although we follow the guidelines, but every case is managed on individualized basis. Now there are new strategies which target mutations such as BRCA and PARP inhibitors, interfering with tumor blood supple with antivascular agents. But two therapies becoming embedded in the care. Means they are not in the established care, but they are trying to embed them in the patient care to have a better outcome. As we all know that ovarian cancer at advanced stage, that is not a curable disease. We provide only palliation and better quality of life. Now coming to the concept of adjuvant chemotherapy. Adjuvant chemotherapy is given following the surgery for ovarian cancer. It is offered to almost all women with ovarian cancer except stage 1 disease, well differentiated tumors. They have high 5-year survival
Ma'am,
and
screen
low
is not
recurrence
visible.
risks. Okay, I have not stopped screen sharing.
Yes,
Oh,
the
it's
screen is visible. It's
Visible.
visible to
Okay.
me.
visible.
Yes,
Okay.
please check your connection.
Okay, it is visible to all of you. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Now, in advanced disease, use of platinum-based chemotherapy as a first-line strategy, it improves the prognosis. Previously we were talking about advanced ovarian cancer management and chemotherapy. Means the patient's tumor is inoperable and we give chemotherapy. There we use platinum-based like paclitaxel and carboplatin combined. Now we are talking about adjuvant chemotherapy. In adjuvant chemotherapy, use of platinum-based chemotherapy as a first-line strategy that improves prognosis. However, it should be noted that platinum-based agents may be used as a single agent or in combination with taxanes like paclitaxel to manage epithelial ovarian cancer at the cost of increased toxicity, and the decision is individualized in the MDT.
आराम से
Now
सो जाना हाँ
this is the slide showing comparing the side effects of carboplatin and paclitaxel, and it is taken from the Stratogy website. Now coming to the side effects like alopecia, because there were the questions about the side effects of these two drugs, so I thought that it might be important to share with you guys. Now alopecia, carboplatin doesn't cause alopecia, paclitaxel does. Thrombocytopenia, carboplatin causes thrombocytopenia, but paclitaxel doesn't cause thrombocytopenia. Nausea and vomiting, both of these drugs, they cause nausea and vomiting. Neurotoxicity, that is caused only by the paclitaxel. Adverse cardiac effects, none of these drugs causes adverse cardiac effects. Arthralgia, myalgia, these are caused by paclitaxel. Hypersensitivity, both of the drugs. Diarrhea, none of these drugs causes diarrhea. Nephrotoxicity and neutropenia, both of these drugs cause neutropenia. Now both drugs cause like neutropenia, nephrotoxicity and hypersensitivity reaction plus nausea and vomiting. Okay, these 4 side effects, these are caused by the both drugs, and neurotoxicity, that is caused by paclitaxel. Alopecia is also caused by the paclitaxel only. Thrombocytopenia, carboplatin, and none of them causes adverse cardiac effects. Okay, that is clear?
Yes.
Okay, will you remember these? Something you are remembering? After you will revise, you will be more clear, okay? But you need to memorize this table. Now, advanced disease, surgery or neoadjuvant chemotherapy, what to do? At present, it is generally accepted that where imaging suggests complete cytoreduction is achievable by the primary surgery, this should be undertaken. In cases where complete cytoreduction should not be anticipated by undertaking primary surgery, chemotherapy should be considered as a first-line treatment with IDS interval debulking surgery considered if tumor response to chemotherapy has been shown. Now, after the treatment of the primary ovarian cancer, what will be the follow-up of the patient to detect recurrence? Follow-up intervals after completion of primary therapy is every 3 to 4 months in the first 2 years and 6 monthly to year 5 of the treatment. Okay, means in the first 2 year patient will be seen every 3 to 4 months, and in next 3 years we will see the patient every 6 months. Now, after each visit, general clinical examination, including pelvic examination, serum CA-125, though that is not mandatory, are performed at each visit. CA-125 has been shown to be predictive for relapse, where value of twice the upper limit of normal is used. This often precedes the occurrence of symptoms by 2 to 4 months. Means serum CA-125, if it is raised more than twice, so we can anticipate that symptoms will come 2 to 3 months later. So at each visit, CA-125 is used to screen for recurrence. Symptoms suggestive of recurrence require investigation. The most common modality used is a CT scan. Means if patient doesn't have any symptoms, we will do only clinical examination and CA-125. If there are any symptoms, then we will go for the CT scan. It should never be forgotten that patient require all the support necessary, as generally relapse is a terminal condition. Besides support from the clinical nurse specialist, palliative care involvement may be appropriate depending on the scenario. Okay, that is and about the management of ovarian cancer. Are you guys clear so far? So that we can proceed for the management of risk reducing surgery in women with high risk of epithelial cancer. Do you have any questions or any ambiguity till now, so that I can clear or revise?
Yes, madam, I have a question. You
Yes.
said that the treatment infracolic omentectomy.
Yes.
And, is it supracolic or whole omentectomy or only
No,
infracolic?
no. That is for the purpose of staging. Infracolic omentectomy, that is for the purpose of staging. Means the cancer is at the ovary. We perform the laparotomy. We take the ovaries and tubes out. We take the uterus out. We take peritoneal washings, scrapings from the diaphragm, and we take the infracolic omentum. You should be clear about that, because that is nearer to the ovary, and it is the standard to have infracolic omentum piece, not whole of the omentum. We take out the piece so that we can see in the laboratory and for the histological diagnosis.
Okay, madam, clear.
Okay, okay. Now we will go for anyone else having the question?
Yes, ma'am. If we
Okay.
will give a new adjuvant chemotherapy in advanced stage, then before chemotherapy, will it be to take biopsy before starting the chemotherapy? Is it recommended to take biopsy?
As per GTG, it is not recommended to take biopsies, ultrasound guided biopsies, because as we discussed in the stage, that surgical spill or spillage of the tumor that upgrades the stage to 1C. So in GTG Green Top guidelines, they discourage to take biopsies. We will do the workup with serum CA-125, clinical examination, and the CT scan. By these investigations, we will anticipate that surgery will not be possible and the disease is advanced. So we will go for we will go for a new adjuvant chemotherapy. We will give chemotherapy that will reduce the tumor size, and then we will go for cytoreduction. Okay.
Thank you, madam. Clear.